Good afternoon, everyone. This is the first session of the afternoon. We are with valuable stakeholders of the ecosystem. How is it evolving? How is it changing? We're going to talk about it. And as we were waiting for the panel, we were discussing it among us because this is something that many people are eager to find out. And we have valuable participants with us, valuable stakeholders with us, and it is important to have different perspectives in terms of payment systems. Where is digitization vis-a-vis payment systems? So let's start quickly. We have limited time and the topics are quite critical. So I think we need to start right away. And general trends in payment systems, when we have a look at it, the sector has been digitized from end to end, and consumer habits and consumer expectations, consumer experience, they're all changing. They are all taking a new shape. And in the past decade, mobile payments system was the buzzword. How to bring payments to mobile, this was a question that we all focused on. And then we've had further technical capabilities. We've had higher number of features, and the payment has started to experience a new era. And we have licensed payment institutions with us, and payment institutions have started to come up with innovation-oriented products. So digital banking is one of the solutions that they developed. How would you like to analyze this? And I will say the pandemic, and because the pandemic has changed a lot of things in our lives, it has changed people, it has changed people's behaviors, and I think it's a better idea to divide the past 10 years into two. And the pandemic has shown us many features and functionalities that were possible, but we failed to use. We've started to use all of them in the neighborhood markets. For example, you can use credit cards, you can use QR codes, and poster devices. They haven't been invented yesterday, but we are adapting to this technology today. Or Innova head office, right next to it, there is a car park. And last year, only cash payments they accepted. They still not accepted credit card, but cash or fast, they say. So at least there is this kind of an awareness for them. And one of the accelerators for this was the pandemic. Well, I am sharing all these examples. They're very simple transactions, but these are indispensable cash payments, and they were the payments that only required us to carry cash with us. But now we don't have to find ATMs, we don't have to go to banks all the time. Well, smartphone penetration has a huge impact on this, actually. NFC has also helped change traditional credit card transactions. And here is a piece of data in 2022. Digital and mobile payments, I mean, I'm talking about e-commerce system, well, 50% of the payments have been made on digital wallets, and it is followed by credit cards by 21%, and this figure will drop more and more in the coming years. And when it comes to e-commerce and digital transformation, well, they have a huge impact on the payment system sector, but it also works quite the opposite way as well. We have a product, for example, we offer it to shopping loans, and Hepsibroda is one of our users. So inside the game, we have credit card customers, and we have cash customers as well. And there are also other customers who would like to take out loans, and they would like to be in the game as well. And with this product, we extend them loans, and embedded finance is a great driver for this. Blockchain, embedded finance. As we are talking about this, the payments sector has gained a great momentum in the past 3 years, and we are all watching the developments right now, and I think it's going to get even faster. And metaverse was one of the trends that we saw last year. but AI is going to come to the fore. And many things are changing very, very rapidly. And yes, we understand that. But when it comes to payments, well, customer experience, customer behavior, and changing customer behavior, I wanted to make a reference to that because not everything is quite fast. I remember back in 2010 when I was working with a telco company, and mobile contactless solutions were being introduced back then, and even young people aren't using that. Even I'm not using it. So maybe we need to look at ourselves. Where are we making the mistake? Why are we not really reflecting this kind of a change in our lives? And maybe startup ecosystem plays a critical role. And at Insha Ventures, you are operating in this area with a brand new product, and you are helping banks acquire the capabilities that they need. What about your perspective about this? I would like to take on a conceptual perspective here. Technology, and these sectors have been out there for years, and payments is basically a cluster of this area. And I believe that there are many possibilities for convergences. We are talking about a huge potential here, and the developments in the past decade have somehow pushed our imagination. And you also emphasized it very well. The moment when it pushes our imagination, some technologies are in our lives and we haven't adopted them. And in the coming years, well, when it comes to embedded finance, especially for fintech, we can think about great things about how to make them more affordable, how to make them more approachable, or how fast we are in adopting them to our lives. Well, this is also important. Well, startups, we're not only talking about teams of a few people. Well, corporate entrepreneurship is also important. Corporations can implement the ideas that they have in mind with other stakeholders. So these are the convergences that I'm talking about, and they hold a huge potential. Startups and corporate entrepreneurs, we are opening up a new space for them. We are somehow compelling them to implement and adapt them to real life. And maybe experience speaks a lot here. It means a lot here, because it's an area where we feel quite comfortable. Banking is the area where we feel very comfortable in Turkey when it comes to trust and when it comes to reliability. And the fact that a bank offers such an atmosphere is quite important. And it is not only about Al Baraka. Many other banks are also doing this, and it is great to see them doing this. But new ideas coming together, converging with the existing structures, I think this is when everything will be quite beneficial. And payments, they're not really very different from fintechs. LSD is this solution has been in our lives for a while right now, but people trying to make payments on the mobile phones, and it is us trying to portray it as an innovation, but it's been out there for years. So fintech or techfin, we are doing these word plays all the time. We like actually placing it at the heart of technology, but Spotify, or there is a TV series on Netflix, and I strongly recommend you watch it. For a successful startup, everybody has efforts there, but Spotify CEO has a great saying. So this is what the CEO of Spotify says. So they say that we are a music company at heart, but they are a technology company at design. So it is important to support and endorse technologies. So it doesn't really mean anything to say that you're a technology company. Of course, we're going to make use of it. Of course, we're going to be backed by it. But I think this is a critical nuance. And when we take a look back at the past, we always talked about innovations and how advanced we are. But we have a huge mass of people who are unbanked, and now there are prepaid cards, debit cards, and they have basically addressed a huge gap and critical gap, and your company has played a huge role there. And how would you like to evaluate it? How to really reach out to the unbanked people? well, 10 years, when we compare us where we are right now with 10 years ago, well, I'm going to take a look back at 15 years ago. Although we have some longings, there was a global economic crisis back in 28, and I think it is when everything started, because the trust that people had for institutions had shattered. All the towers we thought that would not be demolished, all were destroyed. So this is how payment systems had a huge space in front of them. Well, mobile applications have become widespread. E-commerce has then come into play, and many other developments have really marked the payment system and its own history. So it was more like a butterfly effect, and one event and one incident had an impact on the other. And our company was established in 10 years in 2012, and this is when we became operational in Turkey. And back then, online shopping was something that was quite new. Credit card adoption, it was, I mean, people still had certain hesitations. And İninal is an acronym of purchases with a discount. And İninal's history shows the history of payment system industry. We first had prepaid cards, and then after 5 years of experience in the industry, regulations were developed in 2016. We were among the first licensed institutions in the industry, and then we started to focus on unbanked people who didn't want to work with banks, and this is how we reached out to them. Young people were among them. For example, young people had the chance to do shopping online, and we also had in-game purchases. We also offered these kinds of features. So this was our history. And I agree with other panelists. Many developments have taken place, QR codes, NFCs, etc. But there is not really wide adoption there. And in İninal, we have QR codes and we have all these other features. But when we look at the transactions, and despite our young group of users, we see that QR code adoption is not really high. So maybe that's why we need to have a look at ourselves. We need to have some self-reflection to make sure that users are encouraged. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, we're talking about digital transformation. We talked about the impacts of the pandemic, but there is another inevitable aspect that we need to talk. It is embedded finance, open systems, integrations, and these bring along great capabilities. And when we have a look at global trends, super app is a concept. Bill Gates, I make a reference to what Bill Gates said. He said there is no need for banks, but we need banking. This is the perspective that we need to take, he said. So back then he had this vision and he underlined this vision. And looking at where we are right now with open systems, the banks' capabilities, electronic commerce platforms, we can offer them over these kinds of platforms. And Insha is one of the companies with this capability, embedded finance or banking as a service. I'd like to hear from you about services. Our history dates back to 2012. We took an initiative back then. Maybe the future should be planned from that point onwards. Changes were introduced to the infrastructure and superstructure, and back in 2016, we were in a region where the regulations were tough. It was in Germany, and we took a step, and this step brought us to embedded finance, and now we are operating with banking as a service, and we've seen it on the ground, and this is quite critical for us. And Buffin and our partner Solaris Bank there, and our interactions with customers, when we think about all the ecosystem that we have there, where the where this thing could be headed. We saw the boundaries of it, we saw the limits of it, and this resulted in great experience for us. And great fintech was the mission that we then shaped and adopted, and it was to the extent allowed by regulations. And currently it is allowed, but hopefully it's going to be declared, it's going to be announced. I'm talking about banking as a service, and technologically and technically it is quite possible. And the boundaries and can be set by understanding customers, to understand where regulations are trying to impose limits on. When you understand that too, yes, there are certain challenges because more or less because you're still obliged to report to banking regulation and supervisory agency and to the central bank, but still it is possible technologically and technically, and this is at least something that we see, and hopefully we are going to do it with our own skill sets. And because we have realized that it's quite difficult for us to do it alone, and we can only do it if we work together, if we partner with one another. Of course, we need to design everything very well. We need to understand customers' experiences, and we need to design it together. This was the awareness that we've gained. Banks APIs. I'm not only talking about the APIs of Al Baraka. I am also giving a credit to the APIs of other banks, electronic money companies APIs, and other financial industry players. If they have ready APIs, if they have viable APIs, well, because we would like to provide the opportunity to startups, to entrepreneurs. They have existing customers, they have an existing client base. The banking requirements they still have too. As Bill Gates said, they would like to have their needs met and addressed by their own service provider through banks though. So imagine a repair shop extending loans from its own platform, a repair shop helping their own customers with their other needs. In terms of regulations, it is possible, but we need to think about it. NFC was there 10 years ago, and maybe we shouldn't start using embedded finance 10 years after. So we need to work together, we need to partner with one another, and we need to unite forces. And potential, I think we can discover the potential together. Yes, the concepts. We need to have all these concepts underpinned by certain beliefs and values. And please don't get me wrong, but APIs, are they really open? Open API, how open they are, we need to think about that as well. I'm not saying it personally. A bank organized a hackathon contest, and I was part of it somehow in terms of certain mentoring workshops, but the banks didn't really share anything with them, and with people who were interested in it. So there is a great vision right now. It's been a rather good start, but there are many things to do, and we need to try and test it first. And we also have new regulations. So the digital rules of the digital world, we are writing them together. Every developing technology, they don't really have a ready infrastructure. They don't have a ready regulation. I was talking with two lawyers, and apparently we need to work with them as well. But how would you like to evaluate that? I agree with Hasan. Technically, embedded finance, what we call embedded finance, it is very possible, very possible in technical terms, but regulations have slowly taken a shape right now. So regulations have come a bit late. Maybe it is somehow related with us, but we can't really know. We don't really know that there are certain select services being provided via banks, other financial institutions, and enterprises. They have certain obligations to fulfill by the next year, but APIs are also an extension of embedded finance. And at İninal for years we've been delivering API services We have given APIs to certain municipalities. They have social projects. As part of their social responsibility, we support them. There are other B2B companies we're working with, but we need to move it forward. And regulations should show us the way, guide us along the way. And if this happens, this is going to be beneficial for the customers and for the users and for everybody who wishes to do shopping on the e-commerce websites, because it is all about users not having to leave their own application. And this is also going to be a new customer acquisition for payment systems companies. And at Innova, you are in interaction with many different industries, and by taking into account their different requirements, how do you think embedded finance will make our lives easier? Could you please share tangible or concrete examples? Well, you are only taking a finance perspective, and from this perspective, I think that a great distance should be covered. But we have already covered it because we have been in touch with different industries and we've experienced their own developments as well. So last week, Soner Canko wrote an article. He wanted to describe it as integrated finance, and I liked it rather than embedded finance. It's more like integrated finance. As for real life examples, the joint credit platform product is used for car sales by Koç. So imagine that you are pushing your user to find out different loans from different sources, and there is a risk that you may lose your customer there. And imagine that you're a carrier. Your only point is to sell tickets, but if you don't pay the best, if you don't offer the best payment option, you risk losing your customer. And embedded finance, as you mentioned, this has been something that we've been discussing a lot. Super App has brought along a lot of opportunities. But since 2013, we haven't seen a derivative of that. We haven't seen similar products. We're hearing from WhatsApp, Elon Musk, for example, after he acquired Twitter, he said in its first meeting, I want to turn Twitter into a super app, he said. And the most important milestone is to establish a safe payment system. And it is thanks to embedded finance.
I mentioned AutoCoach, but we might have seen it on the other orders screens. So we're going to be able to buy all these other products just like we do these things. So in just a matter of minutes, you can do these purchases. Actually, it paves the way for development and growth for us. So embedded growth, finance growth is a huge opportunity. Of course, there's a lot to do. We're just at the beginning of the path, but just this awareness is going to open up new paths. In the remaining time, let's talk about the future. What is awaiting us? Yes, we are talking about a lot of change, and coming up with so many estimates can be risky. Everything changes really fast, and the agenda changes so fast. And in a country where we have the agenda changing so fast, the industries need to catch up. So I always give the example of design thinking. I'm sure everybody has heard of that. So with new technologies coming in, if we have limitless opportunities, then what we can do is that we can come up with a design to do what we do better. And with that mindset, we can do so many things. So ChatGPT, for instance, realistically speaking, it has been around just for a couple of weeks, but it has a huge infrastructure. We need to be prepared for that infrastructure so that when it's ready to go, we can implement it. With the coronavirus, a lot of digital apps have become a part of our lives. And these are all new channels where payments can be made. It was, I think, just yesterday, Facebook over WhatsApp launched a money transfer in Brazil. So how can we change things when we consider these kinds of developments? When you think ahead in the next 3 or 5 years, how about payment systems and what do you expect? I'd like to comment on a different dimension. In Turkey, I believe there is a huge potential for new unicorn emergences. So actually, we have a huge competitive edge when it comes to banking across the world. But there's also a bit of a stretch in the banking industry. So I think that comes as an advantage for fintechs. If fintech companies invest in the right way, they can tap into that potential. In terms of technology, obviously, we're discussing so many different things, and that was an intimidating news that I read. Actually, chatbot is developing. There's so many companies that are working on chatbots. That's been around for many years. And if that can be done in just a few weeks, if just 1 week, that can be quite intimidating, though the quality might be compromised. Especially these days, in the next few years, software as a service, I think, is going to change, and I think it's going to move towards the cloud system. So there are so many regulations that are limiting the banking system. I think there's going to be an easing in that regard. As you say, ChatGPT will be a part of our lives, but if it becomes something more clear, then it's going to be different. So POS, digital POS, we'll wait and see when that will be a part of our lives. Well, we need to talk about cloud as well, but that's a whole other topic to be discussed elsewhere. ChatGPT has affected finance a lot as well. Y Combinator, that's one of the incubation hubs. In a matter of 2 days, they do hackathons, and there were 4 startups using ChatGPT. So how do you see it there when you think of embedded finance? Thank you for this question, because we are working on this topic as well. So we have products that are available right now. You can use it like an AI assistant with questions and answers, but then what you do is you take it to a next level. When our customers receive errors, when they are doing transactions, they might guide them. Well, actually, you want 3 installments for that, but if you do 4 installments for this payment, here are the advantages. So basically, we want to render AI smarter. We want maybe to embed more awareness into AI. So I think the potential will expand if we do it the right way. Just like we've said in the beginning, technologies advance. We can reach very high levels. Nobody suspects that. But how can we use that effectively in our daily lives in terms of reducing costs and in terms of improving our profitability? I'm talking about the entire society. How about social benefit increase? Yes, we do have fancy technologies, and they're going to further develop. That is something that we're all sure of. Blockchain and Web3 have been discussed today and yesterday. But what matters is how they will cater to the needs of people's daily lives. Otherwise, are we just talking about, hey, we're just developing this chatbot, and here is an answer to your question, but it's an indirect way. Let's not really trick ourselves. There has been quite a bit of a PR. That's why we are focusing our investments in customer satisfaction and social benefit. Well, we don't have too much time left, but blockchain. The young generation is a crypto generation in a way. How do you view that landscape? Do you have any views on this particular development? I'm aware that we have very little time left. Well, actually, in terms of payment, we cannot do crypto transactions, but I'd like to add to what you just asked previously about AI. So we have several plans in the pipeline. I have details about that, but in terms of chatbots and ChatGPT, I'd like to say a few things. I believe that that's where the future lies, especially for fintech companies. It's going to bring a lot of advantages. Just 2 days ago, I experienced one thing. In England, there is a retirement fund advisory company with just a few members of staff. They outsource and provide pension consultancy services using a chatbot. So basically, we are talking about a small company that used to work with walk-in customers, but all of a sudden they have exponentially increased their number of customers, and if they do it the right way as a service, without too much time, too much investment, you can do it. That's my time. AI is important, and we fintech companies should lead the way, in my opinion. Thank you very much. It's been very fun, the discussion. Nomupay, actually, with this global perspective, are working on this infrastructure as a payment system. That is where our dream is. Of course, regulations need to improve, but we're talking about integrated finance, and we can take actions in that regard. So we have Armağan from Innova and Insha Ventures, Hasan, Sami, and also Umut from İninal have been with us. If there is a question, we can maybe have that question. If not, thank you very much. I hope it's been fun for you as well.